All right, attention. So, how do you get better attention? This is something that you probably want to know because right now you have a problem. Let's assume you're in school. Your grades are lower than you want them to be and you want them to get a lot better. So, how do you do that? Well, tell me if this sounds familiar. Your brain can't focus, right? Let's say you're reading some book or something. You read one sentence, you get to the next sentence, and then all of a sudden you can't remember what you just read. That is a problem of attention. Basically, you have the attention of a goldfish. You need to improve that. You need to make it so, you can actually sit there and understand and really absorb what you're listening to, because a lot of people will say, well, if you have better attention, then you're going to get better grades, but no one tells you how to actually get better attention. That's what I'm going to break down in this video. Okay, first, unconventional advice: no heavy carbs before hard work. So this means all those like bread, cereals, all the stuff you're eating before school or whatever, yeah, that is sapping your potential. A good way to test this is that the brain most definitely works better fasting, which is why actually a lot of successful people say work in the morning, because you've been technically fasting all night long, because unless you're a psycho, you're not eating while you're sleeping. So that just makes common sense. So if you're fasted, you work better. And you can actually test this theory for yourself if you don't believe me. Go ahead and read some page, like some book or whatever, okay? Go eat like a heavy bowl of oatmeal, like just stack it up and eat that. Come back and read the same page and see if you can notice the difference. If you don't notice the difference, maybe this is not a tactic for you and you just don't use it. But I'm pretty confident that a lot of people are going to see a really big difference. So work with the fastness. Next, this is a mental thing. The reality is that a lot of you guys don't have purpose when you're working. So what do I mean by that? Basically, when you're in school, the reason why you can't focus is because you just don't think it's that useful or that important. And when that's true, then your brain's obviously going to be, drifting off to something that it thinks is important, or it wants to, something it wants to do. So how do we fix this? Well, you have to either understand that you just won't have purpose for school and you might as well pour your attention to something that is more purposeful, or you can try to find that purpose in school. So for example, something that is a little bit more odd is, let's say you treat school as a way to practice your focus. All of a sudden, sitting in class and trying to understand what the teacher says in tests are just that. They're tests to see whether your attention is good enough. It's not anymore about I need to understand this or I need to learn this for whatever. It's just a test. And all of a sudden, you have some sort of purpose there. Okay, so let's talk about the poor attention span. You're probably experiencing ADHD-like symptoms, which to describe them is as if you're just having constant thoughts over and over again without being able to have the time to actually organize them. Now, some people really do have ADHD, and that's a separate matter, but a lot of people just think they have ADHD. And the reality is that hyperstimulating content like TikTok and Instagram Reels and whatever shorten that attention span further, because you're getting used to getting that quick dopamine hit from each of those little shorts and then going to the next one. Whereas you really want something like meditation where it increases that attention span. So here, let's assume you have some sort of arbitrary amount of attention. TikTok and all these make it, get closer together, so you have less and less. Whereas meditation will make them farther apart and you have even more. So the farther out you get, the better your attention is. And that means that you can sit there and really understand, what you want to understand. And we're going to get a little bit more into this later in the video. But for now, what you need to understand is you essentially need to derive your happiness from more boring work tasks. Because obviously, if I just give you two options, you're almost always going to pick this TikTok option, right? But you want to be picking this. Basically, you need to be getting more happiness from more boring tasks. The reasoning why is because your dopamine baseline is going to keep going more and more down. So let's say you get happiness from something boring like meditation, right? You would think it's boring. then something like working on some sort of project or homework is suddenly this dopamine hit. It means that you want to do that, which means that you're essentially hacking your dopamine circuit and you're pushing yourself more and more into it. Okay, so let's talk about exactly that, like how the brain functions and all of this. You probably right now feel mentally disabled, and I'm not saying that to insult you. I'm saying that because you probably just feel like your attention is just trash, basically. So we want to have something called dopamine resensitization. Now, online, you've seen the term dopamine detox, which is good, but we want to do it something a little bit different, because you can't actually get rid of dopamine. It's a chemical in your brain. It's always you can't just get rid of it. What you need to change is how much stimulation you require for the dopamine to, take effect. So as I said before, boring work, right? So you need to reset that reward system. The first thing is, let's say you're working on some task and you need a break. Most people, what do? They scroll on something, they watch some video. They're essentially doing something more stimulating than the actual task. So it makes sense why they would, want to stay on the break. Now, if your break was less stimulating, then your task becomes what you want to do. So for example, let's say you're working on some project and your break is literally staring at a wall. That is definitely more boring. Your brain wants that dopamine, and it'll then want to do the hard work. That's how you're gonna hack it, basically. Second is in those in-between times, between your day when let's say you're with your friend and he goes to the bathroom or whatever, just rest there, reset your mind. Don't try to get that quick hit. Just, stay calm. Basically, again, you're just resetting the reward system. And the third and final thing is focus on one thing at a time. Don't try to multitask, because it's kicking up your dopamine. You want the baseline to be as low as possible. So when you do something boring, you're finding genuine happiness out of it. Now, a small disclaimer here. The biggest constraint or problem is actually mental health. The problem is if your mental health is not good, you're just going to be thinking about other things that are not doing anything about work at all. So basically, you want to be looking after that first. You want to be making sure you actually have the mental bandwidth to even think about it. Without it, it just becomes a really, really hard situation. The next thing is, you're probably wondering why you're lazy, but the reality is you just live in a really, really unoptimal environment, right? Your phone is just constantly giving you messages, and you just want to constantly, look at the tech that's essentially made to addict you. So small little tip I can give you here: put your phone on do not disturb, and when you're working airplane mode, it's just going to make it a lot easier for you to focus and understand everything.